How you doing? On today's show, I'm going to show you how to make cookies from a brownie mix with just a couple changes, and the changes are optional. And while we're baking, we're going to discuss the history of sugar and how it is written in blood. But first, I managed to get a glimpse of my kitties on the camera. You are in luck tonight because you get to see both my kitties here. There's Savannah. Ooh. Slightly neurotic Savannah just meowed and ran off. It's okay, Savannah. I don't know what Savannah's deal is, but he has some kind of eating anxiety. Comes over to me and meows, and before he comes up to me and meows, and it makes me come over to him to the food. It's like Oliver Twist, can I have some more, please? I say, you can always have food. It's right there, but I have to go and reinsure him. And I see he was feral. I think maybe he was eating some other cat's food, and somebody threw something at him or shoot him off, or he wasn't the right feral and got all traumatized eating out there. Well, let's not get traumatized eating. Let's have something to eat that's fun to eat and fun to make. Cookies, of course. So you want to make cookies, but you haven't got all the flour and stuff. You got brownie mix, or maybe you've got cake mix. You're in luck. You can make cookies. You just modify the recipe a little bit. I've done it with cake mix, and right now before your eyes, we're going to do it with brownie mix. Cookies made from brownie mix is a brookie. I lived in Santa Barbara. There's the Brooks Institute of Photography there, and the students at there were called brookies, but it's probably just a local thing. Okay, so just go ahead and dump the whole box in a nice big bowl. I like a big bowl because it makes less of a mess. You can work more, work faster, very big strokes. Let me break up some of the chunks in here. Okay, so you can just trim the recipe down. It tells you what you need. Not much at all. 2 tablespoons water, 2 tablespoons vegetable oil, 1 egg. And we're not gonna follow all of that. The cake recipe is basically the same thing, but it has water. 1 1/4 teaspoons. They both have water, but this has a cup and a quarter of water, 1/2 cup vegetable oil, and 3 eggs. So that's to make the cake. So if you're making cookies out of cake, you leave out all the water, most of the oil, and instead of 3 eggs, use 2. And you do a similar breakdown with a brownie recipe. 2 tablespoons water, 2 tablespoons vegetable oil. We're not savages. We can use butter. We've got butter. So 2 and 2, that's 4. So 4 tablespoons butter. That's 1/2 of one of these. And because that's hard to mix in, we melted it with a teaspoon of water. That's all the water we're going to add. But melted in there, it's much easier to work in. It's called working granulated butter and flour and whatever. So we're already kicking it up. We're using butter instead of oil, and we're gonna make it richer in flavor. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Yay. and we're going to make it sweeter. It's got sugar in there. But it's probably white sugar, and you get a much better cookie if you use brown sugar. I was about to add a teaspoon. What was I thinking? There we go. It was a nice big heaping tablespoon of the brown sugar. And I want to make it. I want to make it a more chocolatey and richer chocolatey while I'm at it. So here we go. Let's add another tablespoon. Oh, why not? Have another heaping tablespoon. I was about to level it off. What was I thinking? This is for me. Okay, finally the egg. Now, yeah, it calls for one egg, and I'm lucky to have a free range egg. Free range eggs are better to bake with, and they taste better too. I usually don't get them, but I was lucky to. Nothing else was available during the plague, so I had no choice. All right, so can you see it's all in there? And let's get right to it. Oh, I'll tell you a story later, but right now let me mix this up. Let's see, we got cocoa in here, salt, sugar, and other stuff. Those ingredients, oh yeah, vanilla. All those ingredients were bought in blood. You think the history of coffee is written in blood? See the history of sugar. Slavery, the transatlantic slave trade was directly related to sugar. No, before that, discovery of the New World was directly related to sugar. And the shifting of the balance of power from the eastern to the western Mediterranean. The papal treaty between Spain and Portugal. Even the Vikings and the Varangians, the Vikings that worked down in Constantinople. Oh yeah, Constantinople, the Pope. All of that is part of this. All the history of all of those things are coming together here. If it wasn't for this, if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be locked down today making cookies out of brownie mix. All right, here we go. I use one of these kind of get started. I'll just get some chunks out here. Not so much measuring them at this point as I'm just distributing them. We'll see how many cookies that makes. Okay. So low. It's a little on the big side. Looks about right. I don't have to do a lot of work on these. because they're gonna shape as they cook. Okay. Preheat your oven. These are going to have to sit while I preheat, because I didn't think of doing that beforehand. But here we have it. I used up maybe half, and it looks like I'm going to get eight cookies so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to preheat the oven, throw them in there, and wipe my hands off. And I'll be back in I don't know, about an hour. See you then. So did you try out my microwave potato chips? They're in another video. It should be, somewhere. If you're interested, you'll find it. $350 degrees. I've given it 9.5 minutes. While you were away, I made up another tray of cookies, including a couple of the cookies I made with the cake mix. Predominantly, we've got brookies here, cookies made with the brownie mix, but we threw in a couple of the cake mix, just and mainly because there was room on the tray. That's the odds truth. All right, let's get them fresh out of the oven and see what they look like. Yeah. Well, I thought I'd give them just like another minute or two. I turned it off. It'll stay hot for another minute or two. But and I rotated the trays. Usually I just make one tray at a time because I'm usually just cooking for myself. I thought I'd make two. Remember my mother, who was she'd make like 6 trays of cookies at a time. She'd always open it up and rotate and turn them because different parts of the oven would be hotter than others, and yeah, she just knows, this needs to go there. It needs, temp, and then 1.5 degrees hotter if you do that. So I don't know. I'm trying it, and I'm check them out. There's my tray. And here's the other tray. And they're way too hot to do anything with. I gotta let them cool here. But let me finish my story here. I brought this map in to explain. I was talking about sugar and salt, and how the history of them lead right to the history of where we are today, and lockdown with no job and no rent money and dwindling supplies of food. So we have to make our cookies out of brownie mix. How did we get here? Well, I brought this map in for a reason. This is a map of Europe. It says down here, Anno 1641. And it has all the stuff I've been talking about here. And this is what history, world history at this point is all about. This sugar. You see, the principal sweetener in Europe was honey up until about the time of the Crusades. The year 1000, they were the first millennials. You millennials, you're not millennials, you're bi-millennials. If you knew your history better, you probably wouldn't be in the situation you are today. But you are. So let me get you up on what your history is and the importance of sugar in this story. Sugar was and routes through Europe to and from the Crusades where they were fighting got developed there. So they had trade routes being developed, and you also had the development of a new class of people, no longer peasants and royalty. There was the development of a new middle class, a bourgeoisie that, with all these wars coming on, they became arms merchants, and they'd sell them to either side. Look at the history of the downfall of Constantinople. He had these cannons. Do you guys want them? So, no, we don't need them. So, fine. Sold them to the other side. Boom, boom, boom. Gee, I wish we'd bought those cannons in the first place. So, with those trade routes opened up and the taste developed for this new wonderful sweetener, sugar, everybody wanted it. Considering how crappy food was at that time. How they had, anyway. That's a whole nother story. But they wanted sugar, and it was the Middle East. Well, how was it getting to the Middle East? They weren't growing great fields of sugar cane. No, who was? India, and they had nice trade routes between India and the Middle East. For 1,000 years, Silk Road and all that. So in Europe here, they wanted that sugar, and to get it, they had to go through the monopoly of Venice. Venice had the monopoly of trade because of salt. Remember salt? I mentioned salt. A couple ways of getting salt. You can boil it down and get a little bit. So that's why salt was more expensive the further you went from the ocean, because these people on the coast could boil it down. And then large commercial loads, they would mine. And Venice, canals of Venice had a lot of water. They had ancient lagoons that they could mine a lot of salt from and sell it commercially. And salt was so valuable, they were able to have an economic hegemony of all the trade in Eastern Mediterranean. This is the East, Is this map confusing you? This is the way it's supposed to be. Europe, Occident, but here, let me help you out. There we go. See, I turn it sideways. It's backwards. Well, anyway, this is, we'll fix that. Here we go. Here's Spain, England, Ireland, Scandinavia. There's Europe, Italy, and so on. This is the Middle East, that way, Africa. So, Venice had it all sewed up. The Doge did what a Doge does, and he sewed up the market. And the seas were mainly controlled by Spain and Portugal here, and they had enough of that. They said, "Well, let's get to India on our own. Let's cut out the middleman, get there ourselves." And they were just warring. There was an inter-imperialist rivalry. And the Pope said, hey, you guys, you're all a Catholic. I can't have a Catholics fighting each other. I got the Ottomans here. The Ottomans are beating on my door, They don't call it Constantinople now, it's Istanbul. And the Pope made an edict for Spain to have everything, all the lands above this latitude, and Portugal would have everything below it. So that's how Portugal got Brazil, and Spain got everything. It turned out to be a lot, all of North America, but mainly the West Indies were what they were after. Because guess what they could grow there? Sugar. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, they could grow sugar. From sugar, they could make rum, and then the rum would go to England. And England would make guns, send them to the slave traders in Africa. Slave traders would send slaves to the West Indies, trade them for, then they had this triangle. John Hawkins started that portion of the capitalist trade in slavery that way. It worked out real good. It's a financially sound business proposition. Look at the bottom line. Look at the stock market. So, has this cooled down enough? Yeah. Oh, no, not quite yet. Still on the gooey side. Well, we're getting there. So the Spanish got all of that. Then the Portuguese went down the coast here. They're both finding routes to India for sugar. So the Portuguese went down Africa, went around the Strait of Magellan. Guess who did it? Ferdinand Magellan. And they went off to what are the Spice Islands, now Indonesia. And he was credited with circumnavigating the globe in 1527, something like that. He didn't. He got killed midway. 1521, Magellan was killed. One of his captains got one surviving ship, just finally made it through. But yeah, it wasn't Magellan. He was long dead. But it's, the Portuguese like to tell the story their way. And that for some reason, Hispanic figures in American history textbooks are under-acknowledged. Magellan wasn't the only one looking for India. Remember the Spanish? They could go that way, and so in fact they did. And Christopher Columbus, he was the Antilles that he actually landed in, and he called the people Indians, right? No, you got that wrong too. No. Christopher Columbus called them Indios, which means Indians. But what did I just say about American history textbooks? No, Indios, not Indians. But anyway, they were called Tianos, is what their name is. They densely populated. There's Puerto Rico, densely populated. Cuba, the Virgin Islands, all that area, very densely populated, the Llanos. 1492, by 1550, they were all dead. Almost all of them were dead by 50, by the records of, and today there are nobody directly related to the Llanos. So these are a little on the gooey side. Might pop on one of these. Or some of them are more done than others. Maybe I just need to try one out. No, really. really soft in the middle. Yeah, it could be a little harder. I think I'll eat this one and pop them back in for a few more minutes. It's probably still hot, so try and survive the lockdown as best you can. If you haven't got cookie mix and you have brownie mix, make yourself a couple trays of brookies. Give them maybe 12 minutes. 12 minutes at 350. Be safe, everybody. Bon appetit. Mm.